some of those things actually end up being as like status symbols for the affluent, like starting from a
Absolutely.
European car to, like, I guess you found the niche in the kitchen.
Yeah, one of our unofficial slogans is you already have your Mercedes in front of the door. You get your Mercedes into your house.
Hi, welcome to episode 14 of the Emerge podcast, where we break down emerging markets and give you actionable insights on how to start and grow your business in them. We have an exciting episode for you today. Not only were we joined by the co founder and director of Emerhub, Lauri, but we also have Nicolas, who is the founder of German kitchen design company in Thailand. Now, Nicolas has been in the hospitality industry for over 15 years and he has a great deal of experience in Thailand, which we dove into during the podcast. There were definitely some very interesting topics that were surprising to us about how a successful company is actually built in Thailand, what the market dynamics are, what the legal requirements are, etc. So check it out. So perhaps we can, start off with an introduction, of course, of Nicholas, because he's one of our guests who actually lives and works in Thailand, and we'd love to hear more about the business that Nicholas does in Thailand and how it actually started and what his journey was. So Nicholas, a quick introduction, if you will.
All right. Well, then, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Um, I'm Nico, and I've been now since 2015 actually in Thailand. This is my second time. And I founded German Kitchen Design in June 2021 alongside with my business partner Lutz Müller and two other shareholders. The company is a boutique kitchen design studio. We design kitchens for your private household, your villa, your condo. We manufacture the kitchens in Germany. So all of our kitchens are made 100% in Germany. We import the kitchens, we install the kitchens here in Thailand, and we do the after sales. So that is in a nutshell what we're doing. And the business has been picking up, unlike in Europe, for example, where having a proper kitchen is common knowledge, common good. It's a trend that has started here a while ago. Technically or traditionally, kitchens in Thailand were not really heart of the home. They were banned outside. The maid was cooking there using steel and woks and gas, and smells and all of that. And now the kitchen comes into the home of the homeowner and becomes a place, becomes a hub. And we try to basically bring people together in their own home. One of our slogans is, "Let us make your house a home." And as we know, the best parties end up in the kitchen. So it's a magic place. And that's what we try to do and bring to the people here in Thailand.
So actually, when I first moved to Asia, the first country I lived in was Cambodia, and I lived in Phnom Penh, and Phnom Penh at the time was quite different from what it is now. So it didn't even have a cinema. So Bangkok used to be my go-to place for the weekends when I wanted to, like, experience some, like, modern city. And one thing I really enjoyed back then was the street food. Like, it seemed like wherever you go in Bangkok, at least in the center, like, there would be always some, like, amazing street food. So I never, like, connected in my head, like, Bangkok and cooking at home, because it seemed like the food was everywhere. So how is it right now? Like, are people cooking more at home, or is it still like most people eat outside?
Yeah, there's a trend. There's a growing trend of people that start to cook. There are certain aspects to it. For example, sustainability, knowing where your produce is coming from, and basically cook a meal out of it. And there is a trend that people just generally like to start to cook and entertain guests. But I have to say, there is a fair component of our clients that are quite open, and they say, I would never cook in this kitchen. I would maybe open a bottle of red wine. That's about it. It's for show. So it completes the design of the house. It completes the design of their condo. So it's a mixed bag, I'd say. However, there is a growing trend of people that actually like to go hands on and cook
Yeah,
themselves.
Well, I guess the biggest difference there would be, the behavior of the locals versus the foreigners. So, do you see a difference in how the foreigners behave or the foreigners live when they're actually in Thailand?
Yeah, so for foreigners, it's a clear cut case. They do cook, not every day because, as you mentioned before, the options on the streets are massive and great, no doubt about that. But the foreigners, they do cook. For the Thais, it's again it's a growing trend. And when I look at the proportion of or the nationality mix of our clients, over half of it is Thai. So, and then you have this foreigner married to Thai setup, and at least one of them likes to cook. So it's very mixed. And then when it comes to the Thai component, it's growing.
yeah. I think you said something interesting before that, like for many people, having like a very nicely designed kitchen is not about cooking, but it's for many affluent. I think we can generalize it actually the entire Southeast Asia. Like it's like there are a lot of this like so-called status symbols that perhaps like because they travel a lot, they go to like Paris, they go to United States, they see all these like Western things in the movies, and like some of those things actually end up being as like status symbols for the affluent, like starting from a
Absolutely.
European car to like I guess you found the niche in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, you know, one of our unofficial slogans is you already have your Mercedes in front of the door. You know, you get your Mercedes into your
So
house.
when you do your like sales, I'm sure it's a lot of like word of mouth, but like how heavily do you like push on the German angle? Because I think like everybody knows like Germany is like it's like reliable, things work. Like how hard do you play this card?
It's a key selling point for us. I mean, both of the key players in the company, which is my co-founder Lutz Müller and myself, are German. Our product is made in Germany. The company is German that produces the kitchens for the longest time, and so it plays a big role. It plays a big role to be able to say "made in Germany." Unlike other players in the market that have a mix or produce in China, we really try to hit that angle hard, and it seems to be well appreciated.
Okay, so I'm sure you didn't just like come to Thailand, go to the beach, and then figure out that like, oh, why don't I start like a kitchen design company? So like maybe give us like a bit of the
Yeah,
backstory. How did you end up doing that?
yeah, yeah. So I've been in actually my background is hospitality. I've been in sales and marketing and distribution for international hotel groups like Marriott for over 22 years. And I started off in Thailand in 2008. I was then living in Indonesia, in Bali. That's why I know Jakarta as well. Then we went to Malaysia, to Eastern Malaysia, the Borneo part of Malaysia, and then came back to Thailand in 2015. And everything was great, but I always had the feeling that I wanted more. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to, maybe there was an entrepreneurial gene sleeping somewhere in my body that wanted to get out. I don't know. And then COVID came. And I guess, like for me, for many other people in this world, COVID became some sort of a catalyst. And I was thinking of doing something else. And the idea kitchen came up. And people ask me, so why kitchen? I think when you look at the core hospitality um, aspect of things and giving people a great time, making sure they have a great meal at your hotel, having a nice drink, coming together, socialize. This is actually what happens in a kitchen at your home. So this is where I draw the dots and connect the two businesses. Obviously, my experience in the service hospitality industry, I try to take over to our business, and we try to shine with excellent service, response times, and a 100% happy customer policy. So these are all things that we learned back in the hospitality industry, and we now try to basically implement in this new business. And so after finding some great partners and shareholders to realize this idea, we started then German Kitchen Design in June
Okay, so
2021.
how did you sell your first kitchen? Like, how did you get your first customer?
It was actually the first client I had was my own landlord, because we had a water leakage in our kitchen, and the entire kitchen that was already there was a mess. So that was my first client.
So you redesigned your own kitchen basically, and the landlord liked it.
That's right.
Well, whatever
That's
works,
nice.
right? Got the business off the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the first one, and then it started off basically through networking. It started off through mouth to mouth. It started off via social media. I'm quite active in social media, and all of these factors came together. So it has been a solid ramp up phase, I would say, so
Did
far.
you also like include any local partners? Because I would imagine like somebody who is like well connected in the
Yeah,
among like the affluent Thai could be very helpful for this kind of business, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, at the beginning, you have the choice of founding a international or foreign company in Thailand, or you do a Thai company in Thailand. We opted for a Thai company, and that means, we opted for a Thai company because it is easier, and also easier on your capital. Because if you do a foreign company, there are much more requirements. You have to invest more capital to begin with. So we opted for a Thai company model structure. And as I mentioned earlier, I found some great shareholders that actually help us, with their name, um, and also in spreading the news in their network. So that helps a lot, and it is very important. So one of the key advice I would give is, if you go for a Thai structured company, you need to make sure that you have great
Yeah, and
shareholders.
like lots of our listeners are pretty new to Thailand, so when you say Thai company, it means like Thai majority, right? Like you can still own. sh-
That's
Yeah.
right. 51%.
So
51% must be in Thai hands, versus the foreign model, 100% can be foreign owned. And the second, advice in this regards would be, when you say great shareholders, you need to have a solid shareholder agreement. And this is where a good advice from a lawyer or a company that helps setting up companies is key. So you have this shareholders agreement properly set up, everybody agrees. It then goes in a drawer. You may never ever, take it out again. However, it's the fundamental of a functioning business, I'd say. So that would be a second very, very key important part.
yeah, for sure. Uh, I still want to go back to the part of like you designing your own kitchen and it becoming like a business. So you are not a designer, or like you don't have background in manufacturing, if I understand correctly. So like, is
That's
it
right.
like a hobby, or you had a friend who was designing, or like, because if I started to remodel my own kitchen, my wife would kill me. Like, yeah.
So, I mean, what we did, we had a an associate, um, who is my brother, still working at the company that produces our kitchen. So that was the initial connection. But um, all of us working in the company had to undergo a training that basically teaches how to design kitchens, what is important to look out for. There are basic courses about electricity, basic courses about light, um, structural setup of kitchens. So all that had to be done before we even started the company. However, we took the advice of one of my former mentors in on board, which is always hire people that are smarter than you. So we hired actually people that are working in sales and design who have been in the industry for a long time. So we basically bought that intelligence into our company and implemented that knowledge into German kitchen
And those
design.
were like Germans living in Bangkok or locals?
No, it's
Completely Thai.
completely
Okay.
Thai. It's complete Thai talent.
So it's interesting to know that you have that kind of talent in Thailand. Then
Correct. There is, and I think Thai labor. One of the key qualities they have is creativity. I think Thais are very creative, and you see that in various aspects. You see it in small coffee shops. You see that in design firms. They're very creative, and that helps us a lot. Obviously, you need people that can execute these ideas, and that was one of our key concerns to find the right people that can install kitchens, especially at that price point, to VIP clients. And we found teams that can do that, luckily, and so far had no issues really in the installation and completion of our projects.
well, Laurie, you've
But it's
been
obvious.
yeah. Yeah, Laurie, you've been involved in some kind of construction and renovation projects in Indonesia yourself. So, have you had challenges of finding the right people to do this, or do you think that Thailand, now that Nicholas is telling us about it, Thailand might have better resources in this domain as compared to Indonesia?
Yeah. Well, I recently was building a villa in Bali. Like I think like almost everybody now is doing that. So like, actually, one of the annoying things for me was like a lot of the companies in Bali are like the first person you speak to is a foreigner, like the agencies, and then when the actual work starts, like then suddenly that foreigner disappears, and then you're like left in the hands of locals. Which I'm not saying like locals cannot do the job, but like if I hire a foreign firm, then I kind of like expect like they know what I like and like we come from a similar background and so on. But like it's pretty annoying when like the agencies are built like that the salesperson is a foreigner and then like everybody else is like actual work is done by like local standards. So like this happened to us a few times. Like we hire an architectural firm, and then like it's inspiring, everything seems like, oh, it's gonna be a great house, and then suddenly we see like like this like Javanese style, very local style house, which I personally like. That's not what I was paying for, right? So yeah, I'm curious, how do you solve that issue of like how do you keep the international standards when doing it like international business?
Yeah. So, I mean, to address the first point, I fully agree with you. I find that equally frustrating. Um, and we kind of manage this. If the client is Thai, then from our experience, they prefer to talk to a Thai counterpart. So we have Thai sales staff, we have Thai designers, so they would look after the Thai person. In some cases, they don't even want to see the foreign face, and that's fine. When it comes to foreigners or mixed couples, usually one of us is involved, and from the beginning to the end, when it comes to the installation, when it comes to the handover of the kitchen. So um, what you shared earlier, exactly that is what we try to avoid. So we are basically there all the way through.
Yeah. uh, One challenge we have with Emerhub is like hiring salespeople is actually pretty challenging, especially like when you hire like younger people, like local people. Like they often feel like the fear like of like when they talk to like a foreign client, and almost all of our clients are foreigners. So like, do you face something similar with your business, that like when you hire salespeople, like they are afraid to
It's,
talk to the clients?
it's not easy, to be honest. It's actually easier to hire designers than it is salespeople, from our experience. And to be honest, I have no idea why that is. We pay decent salaries. We offer commission-based incentives, which are above industry standard. And still, it's not easy to find talent. Um, I have no answer to that question on why that is. As a matter of fact, it was also not. It's. I'm still talking to my friends in the hospitality industry. They face exactly the same challenge. People just don't want to work on a fixed schedule. Maybe they want to have more liberty. I don't know, but it is not easy.
So the company is pretty young still, so probably you haven't had like a lot of problems yet, but like, with the staff. But like, how is it generally in Thailand? Like, how also in your previous jobs, like how quickly people change jobs? Like, can you like how do you keep people working for you longer? Like, what's the turnover like?
Actually, we have been so far quite blessed in that regards. Meaning, we had only one staff leaving us for a better job opportunity that we were able to provide, but she was actually the first one that started with us. So you have to imagine there are two German guys starting up a company, and you should work for them, not even having your own office yet, your own showroom yet. So that's a bold step, and we really appreciated her, joining us. And she left us after I think 1.5 years because she found a better job, and that was great. And we were wishing her best of luck. But all the others, they stayed from the beginning onwards, so there is very little turnover for us at that stage.
Okay, if you hadn't, yeah.
But again, we also try to make sure they get paid well. I think that's key nowadays.
Well, I think
If,
there's
if
a
you try
yeah.
to
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, if you try to run your business on a small dollar salary, it's not sustainable.
So I think what Laurie was probably wondering as well is that generally there are similarities between what the people, the workers especially, they look for in a good job, and they have their own motivations. There might be many similarities, but for a foreigner coming to Southeast Asia, there might be some surprises when it comes to these motivations. So was there an instance where we've had this in Indonesia a couple of times and in the Philippines as well, but have there been instances where you coming from a German background have a very we work hard and we deliver that kind of perspective, but has there been a kind of cultural shock in terms of working with people, especially your own team in Thailand?
Yeah, 100%. Of course, we're talking about different work attitudes. Not saying that in any negative way, but it's just different approaches on work to some extent. However, I think what helped us was the fact that we have been in Asia for many years already, and we had our experiences in different countries and in Thailand as well. So I think that is a huge help. If you come from, let's say, Germany or any other European or Western country, and for the first time come to Thailand and you start a business there, I think you're in for some surprises and for some challenges. But we had the luxury on the advantage that we already knew the potential pitfalls that could come up and how to deal with them.
So
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
that
can
would
you
be
think
in
of like
comparison
any?
to Laurie. How? Yeah,
No,
go ahead, go ahead.
I wanted to ask about it earlier as well. That like, if you didn't have the 22 years of experience before that, like, would you have dared to start this kind of business, or the experience you got from the hospitality industry like gave you the like confidence that you actually can pull this off?
If I would have not had that experience, I would have thought three times about it. Um, I mean, Thailand is a growing market still when you look at the overall environment. So there are still dynamics happening here. When I compare that to Germany, my hometown, the market is dead. Also here, the competition is much less, though more established. So that's a challenge of its own. But there's an opportunity here. If I would have not had that Asian or let's say Thai experience before, I think it would have been very different and much more difficult in dealing with people. I mean, Germans I can just say from my own heritage, we're straightforward. We say what we think, and we try not to, take diversions in reaching the communication goal. In Thailand, it's different, and you need to listen to those signals sometimes to really understand what the person is trying to tell you. This not only is happening with our team, but also with our clients. Thai clients, you have a similar challenge. So it is. I think the experience helps. Is it mandatory? Unsure, but it certainly helps. Big
Yeah,
time.
or at least I guess find somebody who has that. Maybe not necessarily 22 years of experience, but at least a few more years of experience. But yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
what do you think are some of the common pitfalls that the foreign companies face in Thailand? Like something that maybe you have done
Yeah.
or you've seen others doing.
Yeah, I think I was so far, and knock on wood, there weren't any major pitfalls that we have experienced. However, I think one of the key reasons why we never came into such a situation is because we took professional advice from the beginning onwards. So there was we hired a company from the beginning onwards that helped us going through the whole registration of the company, setting up the company. We had two lawyers in the beginning that helped us also with the shareholders agreement, just to make sure everything is right. And I think one of the advices is that if you try to set up your company by yourself, that is a massive challenge. And if you have no experience in this country, I think you are facing a high chance of failing. So I think it's very important to have somebody on your side that can help you navigate through the bureaucracy that you're facing in the Thai system. I can give you one example. We had When we started the company, we didn't have a showroom yet, so we had a virtual office that you need to have in order to found a company. And when we had the change to our an address change to our actual showroom, we had to undergo through a process where I ended up signing in blue ink and stamping 320 pages, A4 pages, documents to change our address. So that gives you an idea maybe of how much is involved in the back end of founding a company. And if you try to take this on by yourself, I think you're up for a massive challenge. I would not recommend to do that without any professional
Yeah,
guidance.
I 100% agree. Obviously, I might sound biased considering my background, but like I think
Yeah.
the only people who should try to do like all this like paperwork and taxes and all those things on their own are like people who really come in like a shoestring budget, like maybe like you're like a fresh graduate with like $1,000 of savings. Then yeah, don't hire anybody. Just try to do it yourself. But like otherwise, you're just wasting time because you will make mistakes, and most likely those mistakes will cost more than
Definitely.
getting things done properly from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely.
at times, I guess it's not just about the paperwork, right? Because the paperwork might be very straightforward, but then there's a lot of bureaucracy that goes along with it. And that's, again, something that the Asian region kind of shares. So, for someone coming from a foreign country outside Asia, they coming in and they're used to a certain type of mechanism of work when it comes to government departments. But I believe, Laurie, that's something that's very common in Indonesia as well. That there is a level of bureaucracy that goes into any government process.
Well, I think any country in the world, like there is always bureaucracy, and like I when I moved back to Europe after 10 years in Indonesia, I was like, I also opened a company back there, and like everything is a lot easier. Like everything can be done online. You can report taxes online. Everything you can set up company online. But like, why would I spend as a business owner like 3-4 hours every month figuring out like whether like my this month's like VAT report is correct or not? Like I'd rather focus on like growing the business, like not having to worry whether those things are taken care of, because like there will be somebody who is going to do it for you, and they will do a better job than you at it.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. And when you look at the services, I mean, um, usually those companies provide accounting, HR advice, taxes, visa, all these kind of things. And if you look at the amount of money you pay to them for their services, it's in many cases cheaper than hiring one person as a permanent staff. And if you hire that permanent staff, you're also dependent. If they leave, if they're on vacation, then what's happening then? So if you are a company with a low manpower um, ratio, then I think it definitely makes sense. As you grow, you may have your own department for accounting, your own department for HR, and so on. That's different in that case then. But especially in the beginning, there are lots of advantages having professional advice there. Yeah.
So I'll still take this moment to take a step back because a lot of our viewers they generally look at Southeast Asia as the next investment opportunities for them. And your case might be a little unique in that regard because you were already here. But what we've seen, especially in Indonesia and Bali, is that people just come to the island, they fall in love, with everything, and they just think of starting a business. But if you were to take a step back and think, all right, it's something similar that Laurie asked, but from a different perspective, that what attracts you about Thailand, if you didn't have this experience of working in this market for a long time, but what was that trigger? Because I think German kitchens are sold worldwide, and given the currency difference and the way how much people can afford in Thailand, wouldn't it be better to do it in a market that is slightly more stronger? But so, how does Thailand make sense for you?
Yeah. So I think Thailand makes sense in a way because, I mean, you have a comparable size of population to Germany, uh, around 70 million, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, the buying power, the spending power is way different. And, but so there is less people that would like to buy kitchens on that price level, but there's also far less competition in the market. So that balances it out again. And when I compare, and I had the luxury of experiencing various Southeast Asian countries, I think Thailand ticks off all the points. It's a liberal country. It's has a great value for money for living here. You can live very expensive, but you can also live on a small dollar and still have a decent environment to live in. So I think also, unlike other countries, Thailand is still growing. Um, there was a little bit of stagnation recently. Maybe it's also political because of the election that took place. But I think for 2024, there's some great opportunity to be had in Thailand, and I think that, of course, other drivers like tourism contribute to the overall growth. But I think Thailand is still a great place to be, uh, from my personal standpoint.
What about like the traditional things that foreigners do in Southeast Asia, like in the hospitality industry? Like, would you recommend somebody to like get into Airbnb business or start like a guest house? Like, is there still opportunity for that?
I think it's all still about location. If you find the right location, it's worth giving it a try. The big advantage is that the labor cost is still very low in Thailand, and you can work on these numbers well. But I have seen also uh, just around my corner hostels, Airbnbs that no, I would say hostels that were opened up and failed after 6 months because they just didn't work. Maybe it was the location, maybe it was the advertising, it was the awareness. I don't know, but it's tricky, and I think the market also has reached a certain saturation in terms of beds on offer in all kind of different price groups. Um, but and at the same time, there is still lots of development happening. When you look at Phuket, when you look at Khao Lak, Samui, there is still so much new hotels happening, even in Bangkok. I drove by a huge construction area yesterday, and I said, "Oh, this is the third hotel on that street," and not we're not talking small hotels. So, yeah, tricky. I guess still location counts, and if you have a good brand proposition, good you're offering good quality for or value for money, then it could work. But there's I think it's not a free ticket anymore as it was basically maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. When you open a hotel, you could be sure it would have been successful. These times have
Right.
changed.
Let's say that I have something like $200,000 or euros to like start and to start a business in Thailand. My idea was like I'll buy an apartment and I rent it out. Like where would you do it, and which segment would you target?
An apartment
Like
for your own
like for
use
rent.
or for rent? I mean, there are various tourist spots in Thailand. People talk about Chiang Mai very often, which is in the north. Then, of course, you have certain areas in Bangkok which are quite interesting. Then you have Hua Hin, which is in the southwest, Pattaya in the southeast. Probably many people have heard that name before. Yeah, it could work. I mean, I know people, friends of mine, that bought condos and they're very happy. Most of them are using it for shared use, meaning they're using it themselves with their families when they are on vacation, and the rest of the year they just rent it out. Let it be an Airbnb model, could work. Again, to what I said earlier, it's location. There's heaps of inventory. I was just in Hua Hin, which is a seaside resort in the Gulf of Thailand, around 3 hours away from Bangkok, right on the beach. There's so much inventory right now. It's massive, and I wonder who's going to stay there. On all different price groups. You have the high end, you have the mid end, you have the low end, plus you have lots of villas coming up. If you are moving away from the beach and you're going more into the upcountry side of things, but still easily accessible, 20 minutes, you're down in the beach or maybe at the shopping mall, growing massively. Yeah, I'm not so sure if I can give a proper advice on that one, but location, I think, is still key to all purchase intentions, I think.
Yeah, advice I've got a lot is that like if it's your first villa or apartment, like don't build it purely for business. Like make it so that like you would actually want
Yeah,
to live there yourself. So like even if the business doesn't work out, at
yeah,
least you have a nice place to stay at. Or yeah.
correct. Correct. And that could be your base then moving forward. I agree. Mm, right.
What's the plan for your business, like the German kitchen design? Like where do you plan to grow in the next few years?
So 2024, we actually have, we're thinking about expansion. Currently, we have 170 square meter right on the river, great location. And we're showcasing 6 kitchens there, but we have much more actually to show. So we potentially move out into showcasing living room furniture produced by the same company as well as bathroom furniture. So we try to become a one-stop shop for various areas of needs. So because we often experience that when a client comes to us, they renovate their house. So they need a new kitchen. But when we ask, we often find out they not only need a new kitchen, but they also need, for example, living room furniture, dining tables. They need bathrooms to be renovated. So there's a lot of opportunity in the past where that we just didn't do because we were focusing on kitchens. So one of the thoughts is to basically expand into these other areas of home furniture. And the second aspect would be to open new showrooms in other parts of Bangkok. And I think 24 should be a good time after 2 years stabilizing the business, having a ramp up, having made a good reputation of ourselves, to then take the opportunity to bring it to the next step. So, well, we're actually quite bullish for 2024.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Not a lot of companies around the world are bullish, so it's refreshing to hear that.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, I know. Yeah, it's yeah, but I think given the market, given the competition, I think we should be on a good way.
But is the competition really from a local level, or are more foreign kitchen design and house home design companies coming into the
Foreign.
mix?
Yeah,
Foreign, right? Yeah.
it's mainly foreign, and you have it's actually quite segmented. So you have your super high end kitchens, um, which we have a few players in the market, and we're talking prices of 6-8 million Thai baht, which translate maybe 200 over 1,000 euros for a kitchen. And then you have the low end market, pretty much. You have your IKEAs, you have other international or Scandinavian made furniture players, which are offering uh, decent kitchens at a very low price point. But that sweet spot in the middle, for those people that actually want to pay a little bit more, would like to have a little bit more, or actually much more choice, and at a better quality, that value for money sweet spot is hardly saturated in Thailand, at least. And this is where we come in. This is, I think, that's why our unique selling point is really pushing that German quality, made in Germany, into Thailand. And then, of course, there are local suppliers, but it differs extremely there. Where is the produce coming from? Is it made in China? Is it made in Thailand? Um, you can have a good experience, but you can also end up in a situation where after 3 years your kitchen falls apart or starts smelling. Chemicals used by producing the wooden cabinets sometimes can be quite aggressive and even harmful to your health. So that's something always we say, please consider before you buy cheap. There's a reason why sometimes you need to pay a little bit more, and it pays off in the end.
I'm thinking that I don't really know a lot about this specific domain, but I'm trying to understand how the how do you guys use technology in the mix? Is there an aspect of technology when it comes to perhaps the architecture, and how
Yeah.
how receptive is the market of certain technologies that you
Mhm.
may think are very common in European countries, but might be slightly different here?
Right. So when it comes to the manufacturing process, so we are working with a partner that has a highly automized factory, actually three massive factories in Germany. So they produce 3,000 over kitchens each day. So you can imagine that this process is highly efficient. The margin for error is very low. So that is good for us, because when we receive the product after, currently we have a around 4 month delivery time. So from the moment the client signs the quotation and makes a down payment, we need around 4 months. So imagine if the product comes here and is faulty or things are missing. If that happens in a on a larger scale, that could put us in big trouble. So we are relying heavily on a partner that is automized and follows all the standards, ISO standards, TÜV approved. I mean, probably heard about the German TÜV word, which is this authority of making sure things are safe and secure. So that's very important. And we try to bring it into the sales pitch when we talk to the client, because ultimately it benefits them. The kitchen that arrives at their home is ready and flawless and safe for them to use. The second aspect is during the design process. We're using a design software from Germany. This company actually comes from a gaming background. So they're heavily on 3D animations, and they offer us virtual reality presentations. So what we're doing is, at some point, we call it a journey of the client, where they have to find their dream kitchen. And often we start at one point and then we end up at a completely different point because of so many choices, so many aspects to choose from. But at some point, we offer the client, come into our showroom and we give you a virtual reality goggle, and you basically can then discover your kitchen to scale in a animated virtual reality surrounding. You can go through your kitchen. You can see how high is the worktop, other cabinets in the right space. You can open the drawers. You can open the cabinets. So you can basically experience your kitchen um, in a very, very realistic way. And I think that is makes us stand out. There's nobody else using that in Thailand right now. It also helps those people that have a tough time visualizing their kitchens just based upon drawings or maybe 3D renderings. And that is something that helped us a lot in the past to basically close the deal. So yeah, we're trying to incorporate technology wherever we can, I guess.
So, Heb, you mentioned the technology and how receptive people are. I've actually had the opposite experience. So, like, we've built our own offices, and I've had like, a couple of homes in Southeast Asia, like in Vietnam, Philippines as well. And every single time, like, the design phase includes like proper 3D drawings and everything. And then when I moved back to Estonia, then I was so surprised when like suddenly the interior designer came to me with this kind of like black and white, like very industrial drawings that were like 2D drawings, and I said, okay, like we want to see how our like how our house will look like where is the 3D drawing? And then she said like, oh no, like nobody does it here because it's too expensive. Like we're a small firm. So and then I was wondering like why there must be some business opportunity there because like for example in Bali, and I'm sure in Thailand as well, there are like ton of great designers. Like they could do all these 3D designs for the European companies that cannot afford full-time designers. Like what do you see any opportunities there, like to have this kind of like hybrid business model where your designers are in Southeast Asia and you
Absolutely.
sell in Europe?
Absolutely. And for some aspects, we actually use freelance designers for certain areas, so-called M&E drawings that are not part of our team, but we give them a job. They finish this for us because it's a bit time consuming and we don't want to stress our permanent team too much. So that's already starting. I think when it comes to 3D renderings, the market is big because people really would like to see their future home as detailed as possible. And yeah, that can be done anywhere, using the tagline digital nomads. You can be working at a beach in Phuket and draw a kitchen. That is something very interesting. I think for the future, it already started, and in particular, Thailand having such a strong component of creative talent. I think, to my understanding, Thailand is a great place for that.
And I guess it's not just the fact that people are creative. Generally, I believe throughout all of Asia, there's people are generally more tech savvy as well, and probably as Laurie, you're saying
Mm,
that they're more receptive of technology, and so. But I was thinking
right.
that I was thinking on the high end side, like the virtual reality side, and perhaps if there are any opportunities for foreign companies who work in that kind of high tech environments to actually have a business opportunity in Thailand.
Right. I mean, when you look at what I just said, offering virtual reality goggles to experience a kitchen, um, nobody else is doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to advertise it too much, but yeah, you're probably right. There is a gap. Uh, it's not rocket science, and it is, in my opinion, very beneficial to the client and to the process overall. But nobody else is doing it. So maybe I'm hurting myself now by mentioning that.
But about the manufacturing side of things, right? So you mentioned that your manufacturing happens in primarily in Germany, right? So I wonder, well, what the
100%
manufacturing,
German.
yeah. So I wonder how the manufacturing, industry is in Thailand. Whether they're, as technologically and labor wise advanced as some of the other countries, or would you, in your experience, you're importing your stuff from Germany, but are there opportunities that certain things are being made in Thailand that are kind of better? Are there certain opportunities there?
Potentially, yes. I would say yes. Potentially, yes. Even we are thinking of that. Not for our core product, but maybe for other ventures in the future, because obviously the time that we need to bring the product over to Thailand and the importing process, working with customs and so on, can be cumbersome. So if you would have the opportunity to produce this in Thailand, it would have several benefits. But we are at a very early stage to really identify if we can deliver that quality that we would like to sell, made in Thailand. I'm not so sure yet, but we're looking into that. And if there's an opportunity, I think it would be very, very interesting. Looking at taxes and so on. So yeah, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the virtual reality is a really cool experience, and I think the lesson there is more universal. That actually, like, if you're a foreigner doing business in Southeast Asia, you should still keep your eyes open and like keep looking at what is being done outside of the Southeast Asia. I've seen a lot of foreigners that like lived
Absolutely.
in Southeast Asia for like 10+ years, and to be honest, a lot of them become kind of like complacent, or they adapt to the local life too much, and they kind of like do the same thing as everyone else is doing. So how do you like stay up to date with all like what's happening in the rest of the world? Because like I would imagine you're having a pretty nice life in Thailand, and you could just take it easy and like not think about like all this technological breakthroughs and so on.
Hmm. Well, I mean, yes, what you experienced, I have observed as well. But that's mainly for people that are living on a fixed payroll. When you're an entrepreneur and you are basically responsible for feeding yourself and your family, then I think the motivation is different. You can't afford to become complacent. You need to grow, and you need to ensure that there's a healthy paycheck coming your way every month. So I try to. I mean, first, I'm in a lucky situation that I have a business partner, and we basically challenge ourselves. So that's a very healthy relationship there. We also try to keep in touch with our manufacturer in Germany very frequently. We travel there once a year to see what's happening new in the industry, what new developments, technologies, trends, design trends are coming up, and that we bring them then back to Thailand. I guess that's also the expectation level that clients would have towards us, being an international or German source product. They want to see news. They want to see innovations rather than things they know from the past 10 years. So I think that keeps us on our toes, I'd say, and avoids or prohibits us from becoming complacent.
So, Heb, do you think that this kind of business would work in Pakistan, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Nick.
I think there is actually a partner in Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So again, for Pakistan, we generally are very, quality focused, and of course, there, as you mentioned, the super high elite side of things would definitely want something foreign made. So again, it becomes more of a status symbol for a lot of people. I think again that's something where that all Asian countries share, but generally the influence of the West and the influence of Europe, we think that having that is kind of a status symbol. So yeah, there is definitely room for any foreign organization that's coming to Asia, or even if it's Pakistan. But then again, as Nicholas mentioned earlier, that what's the budget size for the general populace. But then again, there's always that upper 1%, 5% who are already going outside the country to look for foreign manufacturers. Um, so yeah, that's just the status symbol side of things that all Asian countries kind of share.
Yeah, and that 1% is actually a lot
Right.
more than many people imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely, it's surprising at times.
Yeah, so Nika, we also want to make this podcast useful for people who are like brainstorming about what to do in Thailand, like that maybe they have been to Thailand before and they want to live there and do some kind of business. So if you were not doing the kitchen business, what would you be doing? Or like some ideas that you can spill.
Yeah. I mean, I would potentially be still in the hospitality segment. However, I think one of the growing areas that I think are becoming crucial nowadays is to work in the area of sustainability. And that could be anywhere from, solar, wind, energy, recycling. Thailand has a massive plastic problem and waste problem in general, power generation. So sustainability on various aspects of life, I think, is very interesting. I know there's an entrepreneur living here. He's French, but he's living here, and he's actually traveling around the world and putting up a fund together where sustainability companies basically that are stock listed come together. So I think that is very interesting. Um, Tourism, of course, is still big. Um, and then you have, yeah, I guess you have your digital nomads as well. That could work quite well, in particular because the cost of living is just not so high. And Thailand is a liberal country, and traveling is easy. So that would be also an option. Whether the market has reached its saturation point, I'm not sure. But these would be the ideas that would come to my mind.
Maybe you can a little bit elaborate what do you mean by liberal country. I think I know what you mean by it, but like you've lived in many
Sure.
places in South Asia, so like what?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Indonesia, you look at Malaysia. I think when I left Malaysia, they were in talks of banning the Oktoberfest um, because it's public drinking, so it's alcohol consumption. Um, so when I mean liberal, I think it's just religious beliefs, um, which are in other countries right now more going towards the conservative side, and politicians are trying to pick up that angle to feed conservative voters. Uh, that is not something that I experience here in Thailand. Um, the same goes for your sexual orientation. Everything is very free. Doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight. So it's very you can make a great career either way. Um, and in general, it's welcoming towards foreigners, I'd say. So that would be my three aspects when I say it's a liberal country.
But Laurie, how does that compare to Bali? Because you've lived and worked there for a while. I know that Indonesia is primarily a Muslim majority country, but and I've seen that Muslim influence in Jakarta a lot more. But I believe Bali might have that liberal element to it, right?
Yeah, well, I must say first of all, like I have a lot of respect for people and their right to practice their religion in their home country, as like the general majority sees. But as a foreigner, I have experienced like many interesting things. Like for example, when I was living in Yogyakarta for a year, the local government banned Valentine's Day because like and all the Valentine's Day chocolates were removed from the stores because like it's haram, right? But yeah, like I think yeah, the Bali definitely, with the amount of foreigners, just like the sheer amount of foreigners is just so big. It definitely is different from the rest of the country, and it's also like a different religion than the rest of the country. But yeah, I really, every time I go to Bangkok, I'm amazed that like I'm still in Southeast Asia. Like the prices are in like Southeast Asia. Like people are as smiley as everywhere else in Southeast Asia. But yeah, somehow like you also get this feeling like people respect each other's way of living more perhaps than in some of the neighboring countries. So that's something I always have admired about
Yeah,
Thailand.
yeah, I fully agree. It's also a quite forgiving country. That is also very. People don't usually hold a grudge for too long. Maybe that's the Buddhist aspect of things. I don't know, but yeah, for me it's home, so I can't say anything bad about it anyway.
So before we move towards a conclusion, let's move a bit into the specifics of a journey that a foreign entrepreneur might be taking. So could you walk us through what you went through when you were registering the company, and what were some of the requirements that might have been a surprise perhaps, or some of the requirements that you had to fulfill, or basically on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is it to start a company in Thailand as a foreigner?
Yeah, with the professional help, I think it's when you say 10 very very difficult and one a breeze, I would say between 3 to 4 with the professional help. And one of the things that you really have to be careful about is that you need to have a certain ratio of Thai staff working for you in order for you to obtain a work permit. So usually that's 4 Thais versus one foreigner. So especially in the beginning, when there is not much business just yet and there is not enough income to sustain the payroll, that could become an issue. It could really, really bite back at you, because you have to have those people and you can't let them go, even if there's no business. Because if you let them go and you fall under this ratio, then you lose your work permit, and with that also your visa. So that can really, really get you into trouble. So you have to plan well. You have to make sure that you have enough funding. Capital is extremely important. I would say it's if you have a 1 to 10 steps that you need to follow, is 1, 2, and 3 would be have enough capital. Have enough capital. Have enough capital. It's yeah. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult.
And when you say like have enough capital, like for a service business, let's say, how much money minimum somebody should plan to have?
I think you mentioned an amount earlier ago, 200,000 euros. I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
The minimum wage salary right now here is around 10,000 baht. So you have to spend 40,000 baht. That's 1,200 euros, if I'm not mistaken, around that, 1,300 maybe, that you have to pay each month. But then again, there is registration, there is taxes, there is, if you have an office location, of course, there's rent. So there are a few things that you have to invest before, obviously, this whole thing takes off, depending on your business model.
But this, hiring Thai people sounds like a bit of a challenge, really, right? So even if you want to have a one-person organization where it's just you and your
You
partner, and
can't.
you can't do that, right? And that's in stark comparison to countries like Dubai, where they do have emiratization, but they require only companies that have like 20 plus or 30 plus employees to have one Emirati employee. So in comparison, that's kind of unforgiving, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's a challenge, and there is a way of. There's a second option: is if you're married to a Thai, then it's only 2 that you have to hire.
Okay, that's
if you,
easier, I
if you,
guess.
yeah, but if you're married like me to another German, then you have 4.
Well, Laurie, I think this
So
is
that's
it takes your phrase of it's easier to find a wife than a good resource, literally, right? Because here you will have to find a wife, right, before you find a
Yeah, I
resource.
hope my wife doesn't make it this far, but uh, no, there are like I think what you mentioned about Dubai, like obviously like the ratio of like foreigner to local, like there are a lot more Thais in Thailand than locals, while in Dubai it's the
Yeah.
opposite ratios, right? But I guess you can make it work. Like there is a lot of talent in the market as well, right? So it's not just that you need to find like 2 locals that don't do anything. Like it's possible to make the business work. You just need to have like good managers, and then like you can find talents locally as well to fill those jobs, right?
Right. Right. So you just have to be aware of that, I guess, and plan accordingly. And then the second thing I would recommend, just would point out, is to have, if you're going for a Thai company structure and the majority of the shares are within Thai hands, you need to ensure that you have a proper shareholder agreement to ensure that although you are a minority shareholder, you still have a say in this company. Because many stories are floating around in Thailand of people that did not pay attention to this. And then once the business took off, were actually bought out by the Thai shareholders. So not only do you need to ensure to have shareholders that you can trust, you also need to ensure that the power of voting as a shareholder is within you and not with the others. So I guess that's a very important key aspect to consider. And that's where you really need, I think, professional help. This is nothing you can do by yourself. You need lawyers to hammer that out for you. And it must be understood then by all
Yeah,
shareholders.
that's actually something that is different in, for example, Indonesia or Vietnam. Like in Thailand, you do have like this different voting rights for different share types. So yeah,
That's
definitely
right.
get in touch with
That's
somebody
right.
who knows what they're doing. So like you can protect your interest this way.
Definitely. Correct. Correct.
Yeah, but then I can imagine a situation where a foreigner comes into the country into Thailand to do business, and they end up going to an agent or a company that is not as I would say honest about everything, and they get into this agreement purely to mess up that foreigner, and maybe have them invest the money in, and then later down the line tell them, oh, you did not fulfill this requirement, now we're going to buy you out. So what again? It's the underbelly of Asia, that there could be a fear of fraud and from people. So do you have that fear perhaps in Thailand, that there's always an aspect of fraud? And I guess a lot of our listeners would worry about whether when they're starting a business in this region, whether what's the probability of them getting into a fraud type situation.
I think you can get fraud everywhere, into a fraud situation everywhere in the world. And I wouldn't make it only that Thailand is giving you that challenge. I think there is the danger of fraud everywhere. In Thailand, I think it becomes unique because it's just such a different culture to the Western cultures that we know of. So if you're not really clear on the um, behavioral structures, then yes, you could fall maybe easier into a fraud-like situation than if you would come up with a company in your own home country. But in general, you have to be on your toes and use common sense and make sure you're not getting tricked in any way. I wouldn't say it's a Thailand specific thing.
Yeah, absolutely. For some reason, many foreigners kind of like lose that sense of like common sense. Like there are so many stories of like people like trusting their taxi
Yeah.
driver to do their like documentation because like that guy said he knows the local governor and like is very well connected. like like no, when at home you wouldn't fall into these kind of pitfalls, but somehow when you go to a tropical paradise, you lose all sense of like what's safe and what's not, right?
Yeah, that's why I meant you need to have a little bit, maybe a little bit more experience. That helps, but because people are smiling, the weather is fine, the beer is cold, you easily can potentially fall into these kind of scams. But yeah, uh, use common sense and just be alert. I think is the key for that. It's there are many pluses and advantages as well. I wouldn't um, discourage people doing a business here just
Yeah, so I guess that's where I'd like to take the conversation as well. So, based on what we've heard about Thailand, and basically, Laurie, your experience of working in Southeast Asia generally, what again for people who are considering or are on the fence about starting a business in Thailand, why do you think that it can be a great market for someone to invest?
um, when I look at the numbers, I look at inflation, I look at growth, GDP growth. I think there is lots of factors that are positive, more positive in Thailand than they are in other parts of the world. And even when you look at the global landscape, the situation between the US and China, it seems that countries are forced to be taking a part of either going with the US or going with China, and this whole supply chain issue is tricky, and then suddenly you fall into an area that is sanctionized, and then you suddenly can't get your goods. Very tricky. Thailand has always been, I'd say, it's a little bit the Switzerland of Southeast Asia. They have been very neutral. They're playing with everybody. They're playing with China. They're playing with the States. No problem. And I think that's why um, that is another aspect on why I think Thailand is such an interesting market, because it is not really leaning towards either side, and that could also mean that for other countries this could be in the future very interesting because of its neutrality.
Yeah, that sounds definitely as a benefit. Yeah, so we don't want to keep it for too long. It's been absolutely eye-opening, and I personally cannot wait to get to Thailand. And we just opened our branch there ourselves. So yeah, really looking forward to getting more exposure to Thailand. So
Okay, great.
thank
Welcome
you.
to Thailand.
So my final question, maybe Sohaib has something else as well, is what's do you plan to stay in Thailand for good? Do you ever plan to go back to Germany? What's your retirement plan many years from now?
Thailand is home now. I'm having now with when you are an expat and you're working in the hospitality industry, you're kind of homeless. And the ultimate goal potentially is to go back home to Germany, in my case. However, since the funding of the company here and the making this investment here, this became home. So for us, Thailand is home. I'm learning the language. My son goes to school here. It's home. So we're not going back home.
Sohaib, anything?
And I guess that's a high point to end this. Thank you so much, Nicholas. This has been an absolute pleasure, and like Laurie said, it's been very eye opening. And for a lot of people who are watching, this might be just the push that they need to actually start an adventure in Thailand. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And Laurie, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
All the best. See you soon in
thanks. See you
Thailand.
soon.